every single time. You sit down, you buckle in, and before the plane even moves, a voice tells you to switch your phone to airplane mode. And you do it. Without thinking, without asking why, because everyone does it. Because you have always done it. Because somewhere in the back of your mind, you believe that if you don't, something bad might happen to the plane. But here is what nobody told you. There is not a single documented case of a passenger's phone ever interfering with an aircraft's navigation systems. Not one. So if your phone was never really going to crash the plane, why has the entire aviation industry told you it might for the last 30 years? The answer is stranger than you think. And by the time this video ends, you will never reach for that airplane mode button the same way again. Here on Simple Histories Explained, the year is 1995. A commercial flight somewhere over the United States. 2 pilots sitting in the cockpit. Everything routine. Everything is normal. And then, a sound in their headsets. A low, persistent buzzing. Not an alarm, not a warning. Just noise. Interference. Cutting through the communications channel, they needed to stay in contact with air traffic control. They tracked it down eventually. A passenger in the cabin. Phone on. Searching for a signal. The investigation that followed that incident, and dozens like it reported throughout the 1990s, triggered a regulatory conversation that led directly to the rule you follow today. But here is what that investigation also found. And this is the part most people never hear. The interference was real, but it was never with the navigation, never with the autopilot, and never with the systems that keep the plane in the air. It was with one specific thing: the headsets, the communication channel between the pilots and the ground. And even that interference required a very specific combination of factors to occur. So, why did the rule become so absolute? Why did it become switch everything off, no exceptions, no questions? Because of what nobody knew yet, and because of what was happening to your phone at 35,000 feet. That had nothing to do with the plane at all. When your phone is on the ground, it connects to the nearest cell tower, maybe 2 or 3 at most. It uses just enough power to maintain that connection. Efficient, quiet, contained. Now put that same phone on a plane at 35,000 feet. Something completely different happens. At that altitude, your phone can see hundreds of cell towers simultaneously. Towers spread across an enormous area of ground below. And your phone does not politely pick one and wait. It blasts a signal at all of them, at maximum power, simultaneously, trying desperately to connect to a network that was never designed to be accessed from the sky. The result is not dangerous to the plane. The danger is to the network on the ground. Hundreds of passengers on a single flight, all doing this simultaneously, creates a signal cluster that slams into multiple ground towers at once, disrupting service for people on the ground who are just trying to make a phone call. Your phone at altitude is not a threat to the aircraft. It is a threat to the network. Now, that is the second reason, and it is more interesting than the first. But it is still not the deepest layer, because there is something else going on. Something that has less to do with technology, and far more to do with how institutions make decisions when they are afraid. When the Federal Aviation Administration created the original cell phone restriction in the 1990s, the technology was genuinely uncertain. Mobile phones were new. The interaction between phone signals and aircraft electronics was not fully understood. The studies were limited. The data was incomplete. So the FAA did what regulatory bodies do when they face genuine uncertainty. They chose caution. Switch it off, just in case. And nobody argued. Because when a safety authority tells you something might crash a plane, you do not argue. You switch it off. But then the years passed. The technology improved. The studies accumulated. And what the studies found was consistent. Modern aircraft electronics are heavily shielded. The navigation systems are protected by layers of electromagnetic insulation, and not a single confirmed case of phone interference with flight systems had ever been documented. The danger that the original rule was designed to prevent had never actually materialized. So, why is the rule still there? Why is the flight attendant still announcing it on every single flight? Why were billions of passengers still reaching for airplane mode on the basis of a precaution that the evidence no longer supported? Because of something nobody wants to say out loud. Removing a safety rule is harder than creating one. If an airline relaxes a safety rule, and then an incident occurs, even an incident completely unrelated to that rule, the connection will be made, the headline will write itself, and no airline, no regulator, no aviation authority wants to be the one who removed the rule the week before something went wrong. So the rule stayed. Not because the evidence demanded it, but because the absence of risk could never be proven completely enough to justify the liability of removing it. And then, just as the old rule was quietly becoming a relic of a more uncertain era, something new arrived. Something that gave the rule a brand new reason to exist. Something that nobody saw coming. In 2021, the rollout of 5G networks across the United States triggered an emergency. Not a technology emergency, a regulatory one. 5G networks operate on a frequency called the C-band, specifically around 3.7 to 3.98 gigahertz. Radar altimeters, the instruments that tell pilots exactly how far above the ground they are during landing, operate at 4.2 to 4.4 gigahertz. Those two frequencies are close, very close. Close enough that aviation authorities became genuinely alarmed, not about phones crashing planes, but about 5G ground towers near airports potentially interfering with the radar altimeter signal during the most critical moment of any flight. The final approach. The landing. The moment when knowing exactly how far above the ground you are is not a convenience. It is survival. So airlines in the United States temporarily grounded or modified hundreds of flights. Telecom companies were asked to limit 5G power near major airports. The FAA issued emergency directives. And suddenly the question of phones and planes, which had seemed like an outdated precaution for a decade, was front-page news again. The old rule that started with headset buzzing in the 1990s, survived on regulatory caution through the 2000s and 2010s, had just found a completely new reason to matter in the 2020s. Different technology, different frequency, different danger, same rule, still protecting you. Here is what all of this adds up to. The flight attendant who asks you to switch to airplane mode is not lying to you. But they are not giving you the full story either, because the full story is complicated. It has layers that shift across decades. It involves headset interference and network overload and regulatory liability and 5G frequencies. And none of that fits into a pre-takeoff announcement. So it becomes, switch to airplane mode. And billions of people do, every day, on every flight, around the world, following a rule whose origins they have never questioned, whose scientific basis has shifted 3 times since it was created, and whose enforcement depends less on evidence than on the very human decision to keep doing something because stopping feels too risky. There is something quietly profound about that. Not alarming, not a conspiracy, just the ordinary truth of how institutions and rules and safety systems actually work. They are built in moments of uncertainty. They survive on caution. And sometimes, by the time the certainty finally arrives, the rule has already become habit, and nobody reaches for it anymore. Next time you hear it, that familiar voice, please ensure all electronic devices are switched to airplane mode. You will know what you are really doing. You are protecting pilot headsets from a buzzing that would be annoying at the worst possible time. You are preventing hundreds of phones from overwhelming ground networks never designed to handle the sky. You are honoring a decision made in the 1990s by cautious people who did not have enough information to be certain, and who chose safety over certainty because the stakes were too high to guess wrong. And you are participating in a system that just found new relevance. In a world where 5G towers sit close enough to airport runways that the frequencies matter again. None of it was ever about crashing the plane. All of it was about something more honest than that. Managing uncertainty. When the lives of everyone on board depend on nothing going wrong, most of the rules we follow every day have a story behind them that nobody told us. A moment of uncertainty. A cautious decision. A habit that outlasted its original reason. And sometimes a new reason that arrived just in time. Your phone going on airplane mode is a small thing, but the story behind why it happens is the story of how humans make decisions when they cannot afford to be wrong. If that kind of story interests you, subscribe to Simple Histories Explained. Because the things you do every day without thinking are usually the ones with the most interesting history underneath. And once you know it, you cannot stop noticing it.